Most people think a will reading is just paperwork and tears. I walked into Mr. Ellis's office in Cedar Hollow expecting exactly that. Instead, my own son stood up in front of 18 relatives and said clear as day, "She's no longer of sound mind. She needs a guardian for her assets." Then he slid a quitclaim deed across the table and told me to sign over the only house my husband left me, the house I poured everything into. I let out a small laugh. After that, my lawyer calmly stood up and pointed to the screen. What appeared on it made them run out of the room. "I'm Cynthia Powell. I'm 63, a single mother now living in Virginia, and this is the story of my husband's will reading the day my son tried to take everything from me." Before I go any further, if this story is hitting close to home, if someone in your family has ever pressured you to sign away what's rightfully yours, hit that like button right now and drop your location and local time in the comments below. I read every single one. It means a lot knowing I'm not alone and neither are you. Now let me take you back to how it all started. To understand why that will reading turned into a nightmare, I need to take you back to the life my family built in Cedar Hollow, Virginia. Richard and I were married for more than 35 years. He worked as a civil engineer for a local construction firm, steady job, good benefits, the kind of work that kept our roof solid and our bills paid. I spent my career as a registered nurse at the county hospital, pulling long shifts in the ER and later in pediatrics. We raised 2 children in a modest 2-story house on Maple Street, the same one my husband grew up in. Cedar Hollow is the kind of small town where everyone knows your name, your parents' name, and probably what you had for dinner last Sunday. The First Baptist Church sits right in the center, and after every service, the parking lot turns into an unofficial town hall. People linger, share news, and pass judgment without ever saying it out loud. Brandon was our firstborn, born when I was 26. From the moment he could walk, he had our full attention. Richard signed him up for Little League basketball, Boy Scouts, anything that might build character or win a trophy. I baked cupcakes for every team party, sewed his costume for the church Christmas pageant, and drove him to every practice. When he made honor roll in high school, the refrigerator door was covered in his report cards and award certificates. We bragged about him at church potlucks, told neighbors how proud we were, and planned his future like it was already written. Richard would say, half joking but half serious, "Brandon's going to take over the world one day. He's got the drive." Rebecca came along 4 years later. She was quieter, more observant. She preferred books to sports, drawing to crowds. She did well in school, straight A's without much fanfare, but we never made the same fuss. Richard would look at her report card, nod approvingly, and say, "Good job, Beck. You'll be fine. You've always been able to take care of yourself." I heard that line so many times it became a kind of family mantra. Rebecca didn't need the spotlight. She learned early how to stand on her own. She got a part-time job at the library when she was 16, paid for her own clothes, and never asked for extra allowance. We loved her deeply, of course, but the praise was quieter, the celebrations smaller. I told myself it was fair Brandon needed the extra push Rebecca didn't. That was how we justified it. In Cedar Hollow, favoritism like that isn't unusual. Families here talk about the golden child without using the words. Everyone sees it at church. One kid gets the front row seat at the talent show, the other sits in the back. No one says anything directly, but the whispers travel. I heard them too, over coffee after service or at the grocery store checkout. "The Powells sure dote on that boy," someone would say. I smiled, nodded, and changed the subject. I told myself it didn't matter as long as both kids knew they were loved. I believed that for decades. Looking back now, I see how those small choices built the foundation for everything that came later. But at the time, it just felt like normal family life. When Richard's health started to fail, everything changed. It began with shortness of breath during simple tasks, climbing the stairs, carrying groceries, even walking to the mailbox. He brushed it off, at first said it was just age catching up. But one evening after dinner, he clutched his chest and sat down hard. I drove him to the hospital that night. The cardiologist's diagnosis came 2 days later: severe coronary artery disease. He needed bypass surgery followed by long-term cardiac rehab medication and constant monitoring. The doctor explained the risks clearly. Without intervention, things would only get worse. The surgery was scheduled quickly. I spent the weeks leading up to it, coordinating appointments, researching recovery protocols, and making sure our home was ready. Richard wanted to come back to the house he loved, not spend months in a rehab facility. So I took charge. I drained my personal savings account, every dollar I had set aside over 30 years of nursing shifts, overtime, and careful budgeting. More than $120,000 went straight to the hospital bills, the surgeon's fees, the post-op medications and the equipment we needed at home, an oxygen concentrator, a hospital bed with adjustable rails, a portable heart monitor, and a walker with seat. The insurance covered some, but not nearly enough. The rest came from me. Then came the house modifications. The old roof had started leaking during the previous winter storms. Water stains were spreading across the ceiling in the master bedroom. I hired contractors to replace it entirely. New shingles, flashing gutters. The foundation had small cracks from years of settling. We reinforced it with piers and sealed everything. The electrical system was outdated, original wiring from the 1970s, and the doctor warned about fire risks with all the new medical devices. So I had the entire panel, upgraded outlets added in the bedroom, and surge protectors installed. The plumbing was next. Old galvanized pipes were corroding, and we replaced them with copper to avoid any burst incidents during recovery. Finally, because Richard's mobility would be limited after surgery, I had a stair lift installed along the main staircase and a small home elevator platform for the few steps to the back porch. Every weekend for months I drove to the site, met the crews, checked progress, and paid the invoices myself. Richard watched all of it from his recliner oxygen tube in his nose. One quiet afternoon when the workers were gone and the house smelled of fresh paint, he took my hand and said softly, "When I'm gone, this house is yours. You've sacrificed everything for it for me." It was just the two of us in the living room. No witnesses, no recording, no paperwork. I squeezed his hand and told him not to talk like that. He smiled and repeated it. "The house is yours. You've earned it." I believed him completely. I believed our son would honor it too. At that moment, it never crossed my mind to ask for anything in writing. Trust was what our marriage had always been built on. Only a few weeks after the funeral, Brandon and Kelsey moved back into the house temporarily. They said it was to help take care of me, to make sure I wasn't alone in the big place. At first, it felt comforting having family close by after losing Richard. They brought groceries, cooked dinner a few nights, and kept the conversation light, but the tone shifted fast. One afternoon, Brandon sat me down at the kitchen table and said, "Mom, you're getting older. It's smart to have someone manage things for you. Let me help with the paperwork." He talked about power of attorney, how it would make life easier if anything happened. I listened, nodded, but didn't commit. A couple days later, Kelsey joined the conversation, smiling sweetly. "We just want what's best for you," she said. "You don't need to worry about all this alone." Then came the evening that changed things. They asked me to sit with them after dinner. Brandon pulled out a single sheet of paper and slid it across the table. The header read, "Acknowledgement of contribution as gift." The language was simple. It stated that any money I had spent on the house repairs and medical bills was a voluntary gift made without any expectation of repayment or ownership interest. There was a signature line at the bottom with my name printed underneath. Brandon said it was just a formality, something to clear up loose ends and give everyone peace of mind. I read every line twice. The document didn't mention Richard's words, didn't reference the house being mine. It was written to erase any claim I might have. I folded the paper, set it back on the table, and said quietly, "I'm not signing this." Brandon's smile tightened for a second. Kelsey looked at him, then back at me. "Think about it, Mom," he said. "It's for the family." I repeated myself, "No." They didn't push further that night, but the air in the room felt heavier when they left the kitchen. Later that same evening, my daughter Rebecca stopped by. She had her own key and often came over unannounced to check on me. As she walked up the driveway, she passed the open living room window. Brandon and Kelsey were inside, voices low but clear. Rebecca paused just long enough to hear what they were saying. Brandon was pacing. "She's stubborn, but she'll sign eventually." Kelsey laughed softly. "Once she does, we list the house, split it clean, and we're set." Rebecca didn't go inside right away. She waited until they moved to another room, then came through the back door like normal. She found me in the kitchen washing dishes. I could see something was wrong the moment she looked at me. We sat at the table. She kept her voice low. "I didn't mean to eavesdrop, Mom. I was walking by the window and heard them. They weren't talking about taking care of you. They were talking about selling the house after you signed that paper." She repeated the words she'd heard Brandon's pacing Kelsey's laugh, the plan to split it clean. I sat there, sponge still in my hand, water dripping onto the floor. Rebecca reached over and turned off the faucet. "I'm sorry," she said, "but you needed to know." I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just felt the weight settle deeper. For the first time since the funeral, I realized the people I raised might not be the people I thought they were. I had no other choice. I needed someone I could trust to help me protect what Richard intended for me. The next morning, I called Nathan Brooks. He was my late husband's old college friend from Virginia Tech, the one who had stood as best man at our wedding and later became a respected attorney in the next county over. Nathan had handled small matters for us over the years, wills, property deeds, nothing dramatic. I hadn't spoken to him since the funeral, but I knew he would listen without judgment. He answered on the second ring. I told him everything that had happened since the service, Brandon and Kelsey moving in, the power of attorney suggestions, the document they wanted me to sign, and what Rebecca had overheard at the window. I kept my voice steady, but Nathan could hear the strain. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he said simply, "Come to my office tomorrow morning. Bring any papers you have. We'll figure this out quietly." I arrived at his small office in the county seat the following day. Nathan greeted me with a firm handshake and led me to a conference room. No secretary, no waiting, just the two of us. He listened again as I repeated the details, then asked for the acknowledgement document. I handed it over. He read it slowly, eyebrows raised. "This is designed to cut off any equitable claim you might have," he said. "It's not illegal, but it's aggressive." He leaned back in his chair. "The good news is, you didn't sign. The bad news is, they're not going to stop. We need to build a record quietly, methodically. No confrontations, no accusations yet, just facts." Over the next several days, we started gathering. Nathan had me log into my bank account and download every statement showing the transfers I had made for Richard's care. We printed the wire confirmations, the canceled checks, the receipts from the hospital for surgery and follow-up visits. I went through the file folders in the home office and pulled every invoice from the contractors who had worked on the roof, foundation, electrical, plumbing, stair lift, and elevator platform. Nathan scanned them all and saved digital copies on an encrypted drive he gave me. He also suggested recording conversations. "Virginia is a one-party consent state," he explained. "As long as you're part of the discussion, you can record without telling them." I bought a small digital recorder and kept it in my pocket during the times Brandon and Kelsey were in the house. I captured a handful of exchanges, mostly casual at first, but enough to show the pattern: repeated mentions of helping Mom manage things, questions about the deed, gentle pressure to sign for simplicity. I didn't think I would ever need them, but Nathan insisted. Better to have it and not use it than need it and not have it. Meanwhile, the whispers started spreading through Cedar Hollow. I first heard it from an old neighbor who stopped by with a casserole. "I ran into Brandon at church last Sunday," she said carefully. "He mentioned you've been forgetful lately, said you might need help with the house." I thanked her for the food and changed the subject, but the seed was planted. Over the next week, I heard similar comments from the post office clerk, the librarian, even the woman at the grocery checkout. Brandon was telling people I was losing my memory, that I wasn't capable of managing the property anymore. He framed it as concern. "We're just worried about Mom," but the message was clear: I was unreliable. I didn't confront him. I didn't call him out at family dinner or demand explanations. I smiled, nodded, and kept my own counsel. Nathan had drilled it into me. Don't tip your hand. Let them think you're not paying attention. The truth will speak when it's time. Every evening I sat in the quiet house after Brandon and Kelsey went to bed, reviewing the files Nathan had organized. The stack grew: bank statements, receipts, short audio clips saved on a USB drive. I felt the shift inside me. This wasn't just about protecting the house anymore. It was about protecting the promise Richard made to me, the one I had believed in without question. I knew the day was coming when everything would come to a head, and when it did, I would be ready. The day of the will reading arrived on a rainy afternoon in Cedar Hollow. Mr. Ellis's office was a small brick building on Main Street, the kind of place that had served the town for 3 generations. 18 relatives filled the conference room, cousins and aunt, a few neighbors who had known Richard since childhood. The air smelled of coffee and old paper. Mr. Ellis, a thin man in his late 70s with wire-rimmed glasses, sat at the head of the long oak table. He opened the folder containing Richard's will and began reading in his calm, measured voice. The document was straightforward at first: small bequests to the church, to a charity. Richard supported a few personal items to Rebecca. Then he reached the section about the house. Mr. Ellis cleared his throat. The real property, located at 142 Maple Street, Cedar Hollow, Virginia, including all improvements and fixtures, is to be left to my wife, Cynthia Powell, in recognition of her contributions and devotion during my lifetime. He paused. This intention was expressed verbally on multiple occasions, witnessed by family members present today. A few heads nodded. Rebecca sat beside me, her hand resting lightly on my arm. Brandon was across the table, Kelsey next to him. I kept my eyes on Mr. Ellis, waiting for the reading to continue. That's when Brandon stood up. He didn't wait for Mr. Ellis to finish. His chair scraped back loud in the quiet room. "Hold on," he said, voice raised. "This isn't right. Mom isn't of sound mind anymore. She needs a guardian to manage her assets. We can't let this go through without protection." He turned to me. "Mom signed the quitclaim deed now. Transfer the house to me so I can handle it properly. It's for your own good." Kelsey reached into her bag and placed a folder in front of me. Inside was the quitclaim deed, already prepared, signature line blank. She slid a pen across the table. "Just sign, Cynthia," she said softly. "It'll be easier for everyone." The room went still. 18 pairs of eyes turned to me. Mr. Ellis looked up from his papers, eyebrows raised but said nothing. Rebecca's fingers tightened on my arm. I looked straight at Brandon, then at Kelsey. I didn't speak. I didn't move. Nathan Brooks, seated 2 chairs down, rose slowly. He was calm, almost casual, as if he had been waiting for this exact moment. He walked to the side table where a projector was set up, something Mr. Ellis had agreed to in advance for any supporting documents. Nathan pressed the power button. The screen flickered to life. He didn't say a word. He simply clicked the remote. The first image appeared, a bank statement showing transfers totaling more than $120,000. The next slide, a stack of receipts, dates and amounts clear. Then invoices from contractors, hospital bills, equipment purchases. Each slide built the picture without explanation. Then came the audio, a short clip played through the speakers. Brandon's voice, unmistakable. "She's easy to fool. Once she signs, we're done." Kelsey's laugh followed, soft but sharp. The room froze. No one breathed. No one moved. The only sound was the rain tapping against the windows. I looked around the table, eyes wide, mouths slightly open. An aunt covered her mouth with her hand. A cousin shook his head slowly. Mr. Ellis stared at the screen, then at Brandon. Brandon's face drained of color. He took a step back, bumping his chair. Kelsey grabbed his arm. "We're leaving," she hissed. They turned, hurried toward the door. Brandon didn't look back. The door slammed behind them. The silence that followed was the heaviest I have ever felt in my life. After that chaotic will reading, everything didn't end. That was only the beginning of the real consequences. I filed the lawsuit the following week. My attorney, Nathan Brooks, drafted the complaint for undue influence and unjust enrichment under Virginia law. The evidence we had gathered, bank transfers, receipts, audio recordings, was submitted in full. The court reviewed it quickly. Within months, the judge ruled in my favor. Brandon was ordered to repay the entire $120,000 I had spent on Richard's care and the house, plus statutory interest. To secure the judgment, the court placed a lien on the property itself. Brandon would have to pay in equal installments over 36 months or risk losing the house entirely if he defaulted. The scandal spread faster than I expected. Cedar Hollow is small, but Richmond, where Brandon worked, is connected. Word of the audio clips and the court filings reached his brokerage firm. The company had a strict code of ethics for real estate agents. A public dispute involving coercion and financial exploitation didn't fit. They terminated him within days. His license was flagged for review by the state board. Clients pulled listings. He lost his income overnight. Kelsey filed for divorce shortly after. She packed her things and left Cedar Hollow for good. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that she moved to a larger city up north, cutting all ties. No calls, no messages. The marriage ended quietly, but the damage was permanent. The rest of the family followed suit. Cousins who had attended the reading stopped inviting me to holiday gatherings. An aunt who once brought casseroles after Richard's funeral no longer called. The phone stayed silent on birthdays and anniversaries. No one confronted me about the lawsuit, they simply withdrew. In a town like Cedar Hollow, silence is the loudest judgment. Brandon never reached out again. No apology, no explanation, no attempt to repair what was broken. From that day forward, he was no longer my son. I didn't block his number, I didn't need to. There was nothing left to say. I had lost a child, but in the process, I had reclaimed myself. I no longer carried the weight of trying to hold together a family that was never truly whole. Rebecca stayed. She never wavered. She helped me sort through the paperwork, sat with me during the quiet evenings, and reminded me that loyalty isn't measured by blood alone. Together, we kept the house, my house, exactly as Richard intended. We planted flowers in the front yard, repainted the porch, and made it our own again. Life settled into a calm rhythm. No drama, no pressure, just peace. Looking back, I learned the hardest truth of all: family is not defined by shared DNA or shared memories. It is defined by respect. When respect is absent, what remains is obligation, manipulation, and pain. If someone tries to take what is yours, whether through words, documents, or guilt, do not stay silent. Do not trust promises without paper. Do not believe love excuses betrayal. Protecting yourself is not selfish. It is self-respect. You deserve peace. You deserve fairness. And you deserve to live in a home, literal or emotional, that no one can take from you unless you choose to give it away. I chose to keep mine.